Thank you for tuning in to the Into the Classroom series produced by Mental Health California, sponsored by Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andre Nolan White, peer leader here with Brother Be Well. Thank all of you guys for joining tonight's pod at 7. I would like to thank Mental Health California and Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative for supporting. Thank you to the peer leaders, the mentors, the clinicians, and the producers that make this whole program run. A few quick reminders. This is a safe space, so we please ask for no cursing and no judgment being passed. We understand that what we talk about tonight can be very heavy and very tough for some of you guys to deal with. And the sign-in sheet will close at 8:30 p.m. sharp, and that is tied in directly to your stipend. So please do not forget to sign in, because that is how we track who was here and who was not here. And today's pod at 7 is going to be party, drugs, and bad decisions. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. I'm going to pass it over to my man Tex.
Thank you, Andre. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tex Wamboe, peer leader here, Brother Be Well. Parties are meant to be fun, but sometimes, things take a turn. And a drug that seems harmless at first can certainly spiral into danger. So in this session, we're going to be breaking down what happens in the brain and body with party drugs, why risks can sneak up fast, and how to look out for ourselves and our friends. So this isn't about judgment. It's about awareness, real information, and making decisions that protect you and your future. And to take us deeper into that, I'm going to pass it over to Coach Crump to introduce today's topic.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Coach Crump. Glad that y'all are here with us today. Party culture, right? It often will give us this idea that substances are just part of having fun. It's just a part of the party. We want to keep it going. We want to keep it lit. But the reality is a lot more complicated than that. When it comes to drugs and substances, especially ones like MDMA, ecstasy, or pills of unknown origin, all of that can flood your brain with chemicals, and those chemicals can be dopamine or serotonin, and they can create these really intense highs, but they also have a lot of different risks that are associated with them as well. That can include overheating or dehydration or even dangerous interactions or even overdose or poisoning. Clinicians, they emphasize that the danger isn't just in the drug itself, but in the unpredictability of it all. What's in it, or how much of the drug was taken, and in what environment was it used in. So by having conversations like this and talking honestly without any judgment, we can move past any scare tactics, and we can really focus on prevention and harm reduction strategies that keep nights safer and friends protected. So today's session is really about replacing misinformation with real knowledge so that choices can be made with our eyes wide open. So I'm going to pass it back over to Andre to take us to our icebreaker.
Thank you for that, Coach Crump. We are now going to jump into our icebreaker. This is just to keep the conversation rolling and, loosen you guys up a little bit so you guys can have an amazing pod at 7. That icebreaker is: how can friends help each other make better decisions in a party environment, especially if someone just dealt with an adverse situation? So if you guys can, just go ahead, put a couple quick responses, a few words, a couple sentences, whatever you guys are comfortable with. For me, something that me and my friends would do, especially when it came to being in party environments, is we would all, just have a circle of trust. If we saw a situation getting out of hand, or we saw, someone doing something they shouldn't be doing, I would usually go to a party with about 3 to 4 of us. And if one of us said, "Hey man, you're out of line," or "Hey, this is getting, out of hand," or, "We're kind of out of our depth in this situation," there would be no arguments. We would just trust that other person, and we would just, leave the party. We would slow down, and we would do whatever we needed to do, but we would have ultimate trust within those 3 to 4 people. So, that's for me, just trusting your friends and, honoring that circle of trust. I see Gray Hernandez said sharing circle and reflecting on that, or do a pair up and set rules and boundaries. Yeah, exactly. Rules and boundaries. Every friend group needs to have those. Every friendship needs to be able to have those, boundaries with each other. Daniel Hernandez, thank you for sharing, says be there for them even without talking. Yeah, when it comes to friendship, just be there for somebody. Sometimes people don't always need advice. They don't always need a response. They just need somebody to be there to listen to them. So thank you guys for all of your responses. Keep these creative juices flowing throughout the rest of the night. We are going to jump in to our video, dealing with adversity.
Hi, my name is Malik Sampson, and I'm Associate Marriage and Family Therapist and Associate Professional Clinical Counselor at HearU.org. And today I'm here in partnership with Brother Be Well, and I'm going to be talking to you about adversity and how to deal with adversity. But before I get into how to deal with adversity, let's define it. What is adversity? Adversity is any experience where you feel like you're going through any type of hardship. When you're experiencing adversity, you might ask yourself questions like, why is this happening to me? What do I do to deserve this? And I'm here to tell you that you did nothing to deserve it. It's a part of life. It's something that happens, that it's unfortunate that happens, but there's so many things that can come from adversity. So let's talk about that. When it comes to adversity, it comes in so many different types of ways. It isn't a one way thing. You can't just say adversity is this experience. Adversity is multiple different types of experience. And unfortunately, we all are going to experience some type of adversity in our life. However, with knowing that, you should give yourself grace within those times of dealing with adversity, knowing that we are all going to experience it at some point, and that's inevitable, unfortunately. However, there's so many things that can be learned from going through different types of adversity, whether it's necessarily a deserved adversity or not. And with that, having people around you to support you during those times of you experiencing adversity is so important, because those people have also experienced some type of adversity before, more than likely. And even if it was a different type of adversity, they can still be there as a support system because it's something that they've experienced in some type of way. And because it's something we've all experienced, we can find support within adversity from so many different angles in so many different places. And that's just something I want you to keep in mind when coming and experiencing different types of adversity, is knowing that, one, it's not your fault. Two, you did nothing to deserve it. Three, it's so much you can learn from it. It can make you so much stronger. And four, surround yourself around people that are going to support you through your adverse experiences. And that is what I have to say today. Thank you, guys. And as always, brother, be well.
All right. Hi, guys. My name is Patrick Ma, and one of the youth mentor here at Brother Be Well. And we want to hear more from you. So we are going to launch a poll right now. And I do want to surface this topic with a statement that this is a safe zone. This is not the place people will judge you based on the decision that you may have made in the past or currently are making. And if you feel like you are struggling with substance use or have any issue in that area, please feel free to reach out to either to myself or one of our peer mentor or clinician privately. We're happy to direct you to the resources. But with that said, we do want to know, have you been in the situation where party drugs were present at a social event? There's a lot of passing. Wonderful. It seems like nobody have tried it. Yeah, see, thank you. One honest person. I see you and I give you props. That's amazing. It's just, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just part of the experience that we are growing up. You eventually will be persuaded into trying things, and hopefully you will have the enough, self-discipline and power and knowledge to know that it's not a good thing for you. But when you're young, especially at you guys' age, it's not uncommon. I do want to hear the people who said, you've been around it, but just stay out of the mix. Go ahead and raise your hand. I do want to hear from you. How did you stay out of the mix? Maybe your tips can help someone else in the audience.
Hi. So yeah, I think I've been around like I would say party drugs because like there's some parties, that happens like around me and like for me to kind of like stay out of it, obviously some of my friends are saying like, "Oh, you got to go try this one, try heroin, try, marijuana, try weed." Um I personally don't really have an interest for it. The smell really like um I would say it doesn't smell good for me. So that's like one of the reasons why I've never like tried it. And the other part is more just like I don't want to be in a situation, especially like around people where I don't know what I'm doing and I might do something that I will most likely regret. So that's how I keep myself out of it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Gray. I think that's a great way to situate it yourself and like knowing your boundaries and limitations. I have to be honest, like when I tried marijuana, I didn't think it was a dangerous drug, but that's just because I was younger and the friends that I was with was people whom I was very comfortable with. Which can be a plus and a downside. The plus side is they can take care of me. The downside, because I know them and I trust them, I felt like I could do it without any consequences. But marijuana is just one of the many substances. There's other, I would consider more dangerous substances out there. It's like MDMA, ecstasy, or even heroin, like you mentioned. So thank you for sharing. I think knowing yourself, knowing the situation that you're in, and know how to say no politely, you still cool. In my opinion, you're still very, very cool. Let's hear from one more person. Yourself, you want to unmute yourself? How do you support your friend or yourself in the situation where drugs is around? I would love to hear from you.
I support my friends, but I telling them that like I support whatever they're doing, and that I'll always be there for them.
Yeah, I think that's important. And just because they may doing something that not a good decision doesn't mean that you should just abandon them. Thank you for sharing. Dr. Rimti, can you share briefly in a minute or so how peer pressure play a factor into the situation and what is happening psychologically for our teenagers?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's peer pressure, I think, but it's also our brain because human brain, adolescent brain especially, is just wired for connection. We want to be accepted. We want that social approval. We seek that social approval. And there's also, I think, a little bit of curiosity mixed in with the seeking approval and with the peer pressure. So I think it's the end of I want to belong. And I'm also curious, like, what does this feel like? And if they're doing it, then the brain thinks maybe it's okay for me to do as well. I mean, I see my friends doing it. So the way we perceive the risk, the way our brain perceives the risk becomes very low because I mean, if I see Patrick doing it, he's fine. I'll be fine as well. But drugs are just it's going to have different impact on different people. And just to kind of validate, if you have tried it due to peer pressure or if you haven't tried it, both of them are completely natural responses because it's human. It's your brain. It's how your brain wants to behave. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to try or trying or something like that. Just you have to remember what your goals in life are what you want to do in your life and whether trying those substances align with your long-term life goals.
Dr. Rimti, amazing insight. Thank you so much. And I think that's why it's so important for us to kind of like empower ourselves with knowledge to know that we need to move forward and how to move forward. And with that said, I'm going to pass it on to Andre.
Thank you for that, Patrick. We are going to jump into our first trivia of the night. Just some quick reminders. You guys should have your responses to meeting group, not just hosts and panelists or anybody in particular. And the answers are not just A, B, C, and D. So read the question and then respond. And for trivia number one, it is going to be, which innovation was designed to filter ocean plastic using AI-controlled barriers? So the answers are J, Ocean Eye, K, the Sea Sweep, M, the Ocean Cleanup Project, or N, Aquabots 3000. And man, hopefully you guys can get this one. It took me a while and some research to actually look in to all of these AI controlled barriers. So I hope you guys can get this.
I have some great news. We have a winner for the first trivia winner. We would like to say congrats to Eric Gonzalez. The correct answer was M, the Ocean Cleanup Project. So nice work. Seems like you're in the climate world knowledgeable there. So
we are now going to move into our next segment, and we are going to jump into our topic media, party, drugs, and bad decisions.
Standpoint, substances like alcohol, ecstasy, or hallucinogens can impair brain function, especially in the areas responsible for decision making and impulse control. And I want to turn over to our clinician, to Sherry, to talk about this topic.
Thank you. Yes. I think everybody kind of assumes, yeah, duh, I know it's going to affect my decisions, but I think it's worth it. I just want that feeling. Um and I get it. It's life is very hard and people are struggling a lot of times with physical pain, emotional pain, and substances, especially when you're in a party type situation, seem like as long as I stay in one place and have a safe way home, I'm okay. And I can certainly understand that. But one thing to consider is no matter what the drug is, even if it's one that has maybe a reputation for not being as harmful, the reason a lot of times people turn to these is, remember, it does affect your mood. I had a high schooler tell me one time when I asked, why do you think people use drugs and alcohol? She said, I think they do it to either change the way they're feeling or to feel something when they're feeling nothing. And I totally get that. The thing to remember, though, is the reason is it's not just affecting your mood, it affects your choices, especially the young brain. The word young means under 25. Your brain is still growing. And the part that's still growing is the part that talks about a little self-talk about, oh, what happened last time I did this? Maybe I shouldn't do that. What are the risks involved here? And the part of your brain that's surging, that is totally developed, is the part that says, hey, let's do that. That sounds fun. So I kind of describe that the young brain as a Mack truck with bicycle brakes. That can really sometimes affect the choices you would make. And remember, we all have instincts, right? And we have reactions that protect us in normal life. But drugs and alcohol kind of alter that. You might miss a danger sign that you would normally hit. You might overestimate, oh, I could jump from that roof to that roof. No problem. Alcohol says, go ahead. And you might misread social cues, sometimes doing something embarrassing, especially now with social media the way it is. I've talked to so many young people that something embarrassing gets recorded and then boom, it's out there. Your one embarrassing moment, anytime anybody Googles your name or whatever, there it is. It really kind of stops your ability from being able to do that. And not only that, but binge drinking is especially an issue with young people at parties, which means you're drinking a lot in one instance. And there's a lot of statistics out there that are important to know, because youth who binge drink are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide. They're 10 times more likely to drink and drive, 11 times more likely to try other drugs, which with fentanyl out there now is pretty scary. But 4 times more likely to be arrested, much less likely to use protection if they're going to hook up, as they call it. So all of those, the choices that sober you would never make, that part of your brain that says, hey, wait a minute, let's think about this, is numbed even more by the effects of the drug.
Sherry, thank you so much for sharing. I also want to mention a piece that is so important for us here at Brother B. Wow. It's a mental health aspect of it. Mental health, drugs, and alcohol go hand in hand. And the reason why I mention it as a vicious cycle, because once you use drugs and alcohol, you are more likely to develop a mental health disorder, even if it's temporary. For our youth on the panel, I want to ask you, have you seen your friends do things at party that they don't normally do? And how do they act compared to when they are sober? Let's go with Alexio.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's super important to just have transparency, right? We're all people, we all make mistakes and we all learn from them, right? But if we don't share them, we can't learn from each other. So I'll say, I think it gets to a point where, hey, if you're around it so much, you at one point you do, get tempted, peer pressure if that's so, and you try it, right? And then you start linking, these substances to, social activities, right? So let's say social outings, right? So now you're linked to, hey, I'm going out this weekend. Hey, I need, might as well drink since I'm there, right? Like, hey, we're gonna go to such and such, even a birthday party. It's okay. I'll bring the alcohol, I'll bring this, right? It's just, it's just tied hand in hand. So I think just breaking that and knowing, hey, setting a boundary for yourself is just super important. Monica, I mean, have you felt similar, about outings?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said, and then, it kinda just reminded me of how everyone's always trying to pregame after any social event. Recently, I was invited to something next week, and then they're like, "Oh, you're gonna drink, right?" It's kind of just, like, normalized, like, they refer to alcohol as, like, confidence juice. It blocks your ability to decipher between good and bad decisions, so that confidence eventually turns into embarrassment the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. Monica, you like hit the nail right on the head. But Sophia, I want to hear what you have to say. Have you experienced that kind of thing in high school setting?
Yes, actually a lot. And honestly, I went to this one little get together back in my freshman year, ninth grade, by the way. Oh my gosh. All of them were vaping except one of my closest friends. This one girl goes, "Hey, you want to try something? You want to do this?" And I go, "No, thank you." She's like, "Are you sure? Does it really affect you?" She was acting completely different than what she did, sober. I was honestly a little scared. I was like, And then I had this other friend. He said he quit doing the whole drug thing. He just had these mood swings. It does affect your mood. He just looked more tired, way more irritable. And then I said, "Are you sure you quit?" He's like, "It's just once a month." Ended up turning into once a week, into every day. Throw a chair at him. It was horrible. It was horrible.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. So, Sophia, your comment actually led us right into the next topic. What are the long-term consequences of one bad decision? Legal, health, personal, otherwise. Let's hear what Sherry has to say.
Again, that prefrontal cortex, it's really hard to think about the long term consequences of decisions, especially when you're younger. You might think, oh, it's just one night, but the legal system won't see it that way. Those choices sometimes can stick with you and get in the way of whatever goals or whatever. So, really try to concentrate on, I always say, define your why. Don't just go into something and think, like you guys all said, well, everybody's just doing it. So, that's what we do, right? Try to decide, well, I have this goal for myself, so I'm going to abstain. A lot of times people think, oh, I got so wasted the night before, then the next day. So you think as long as you didn't get in trouble or nothing bad happened, then you're okay. But your body remembers. Even once a month use is going to have a lifelong effect on not just your body, but your brain especially. And remember, the brain you have is the brain you have. There's no such thing as a brain transplant. It's with you your whole life. And especially if you damage it during those years when it's forming, that's the time. Those really stick with you long term. So even if you forgot the party night, believe me, your body and brain did not. The consequences of that are hiding in there and sometimes building upon each other. When you get older, my age, and you need those development, those cognitive skills, and they start dissipating as you're older anyway. But research has shown that damage done when you're younger, that doesn't get repaired as you get older.
Yeah, so very true. This is one of those parts of the conversation where we ask ourselves, well, how do we, get our friends and like educate them on the risks of these party drugs without sounding like preachy, right? And I appreciate you, Christian, for being here. I appreciate all y'all for being here. But I really want to tap into Christian's insight on this because I feel like this is very crucial for young folks to be able to have something to say to the individuals that, their peers. I mean, they put their trust in them, they're relying on them to keep them safe and to look out for them. But how do you say that, right? What are some of those ways that we can do that without sounding preachy? And I'm gonna ask some of the folks that are here, some of the attendees, to come off of mute. But Kirsten, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah, thanks, Conrad. I think a few ways I think it was really important is safety and storytelling is really the important thing to do when it comes to young people and trying to not sound too preachy, right? So storytelling is really important. So just even doing something relatable is saying, hey, in my experience, I watched my dad and this is what happened. Or talk about their own individual experience versus being too preachy and telling them what they should not do. Or I've seen my brother, or this is what happened to me when I did this. So storytelling is really important. So it kind of takes the individual spotlight off of them and makes it more, relatable in that space. And also just focusing on safety, right? You just want to focus on, it's called harm prevention in the clinical space, meaning that you're not doing zero abstinence, which is not using at all. We know that young people are going to use drugs. So harm reduction is if I'm going to use, how can I make it more, safe? Which is, promoting test kits, having a Narcan kit with you. So in case someone overdoses on fentanyl, you have the spray in your hand, or test strips for your drinks at the party. There's little testing strips. And actually, it's part of the law now in bars. They have to offer test kits at the bar now, so you can test your drink to make sure there's nothing inside of it. And just keeping it short and casual, keeping it short, no long speeches, nothing like that. And one other thing to do is like use posts, from like social media, like use culture. Hey, this person said this. Look on TikTok. This is a reputable source, of course, but using social media too to also help and mix some humor in there and some awareness. And maybe some influencers talking about it who are reputable, some celebrities, things like that. So those are some like ways to kind of really incorporate it without it sounding so preachy, like, oh, you shouldn't do this, because we know that most people are going to experiment with drugs. So if you're going to do it, how can you be safe, and what are the safe the outcomes of it? So those are just a few things that you can do, and then also just respect their autonomy. If they decide to do it anyway, you got to respect their decision, and then you make an adjustment accordingly.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I have a friend who told me, he said no one ever told him the differences in the types of drugs. He tried almost every drug. And he was like, they didn't tell me about how one drug was gonna hook me more than others, or how this drug would make me feel this way, or this one would make me feel that way. And it was through an experience of all of these types of drugs that he went through a long journey of battling them to overcome to become sober. So just some of those things to think about, educating yourself on what it is that you're putting into your system. I want to call out to Eric Gonzalez. Let's kick it over to you, Eric, and just talk to us, man. What are some of the ways you can educate a friend about the risk of party drugs without sounding preachy?
Hello. So I think some ways is that in reality, just keeping it short and sweet, just being honest with them. And I think Christian put it perfectly, where it's like respect their autonomy. If they do it, they do it. There's not much you can really do to stop them at the end of the day. Like if they decide to go through with it, the best thing you could probably do is just be there for when it ends up happening, or if something does end up happening, just be by their side and tell, and not the whole like, oh, I told you so, I told you not to do it, but just like you live and you learn, right? And then if they like talk to you like, hey man, I shouldn't have done that, they're like, oh, it's fine. Just, listen next time, or like I was just doing it to, to be helpful at the end of this. I think that's basically how you would do it. Just keep it short and sweet. If they do it, they do it. Just be honest with them what might happen, what could happen, and just give them a warning before they actually go out.
Yeah, no, that's good looking out. One more person. How about you, Gray? You were speaking up a little earlier. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this.
I feel like a way that we can educate our peers about, the risks of party drugs is just like, first off, like letting them know that like their feelings are valid if they have like any other opinion about it, or like if they disagree with their opinion, it's okay to, agree to disagree. Another thing that I would most likely say is just that it's really harmful for like our bodies. And you know, we have to make sure that we take care of ourselves, and that could mean like a bunch of like different things. So instead of like party drugs, we could use like other like coping mechanisms and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. And I see you in the chat too as well. Thank you everyone for chiming in. I'm gonna pass it over to Tex to take us to our next part of our program today.
Thank you, Coach Crime, and thank you, Christian, for everybody who was participating. So we're going to take a quick moment now for like a short survey. It's a Blue Shield survey. This helps support the program. It's been put in the chat. It allows us to keep creating spaces like this. It only takes a minute, so please take that moment to fill it out using the link in the chat, as I said. So follow that link. Maybe take you 30 seconds or a minute to do it. Let's keep things moving and jump into the next trivia. So before the question drops, just quick reminders. Please wait until the question is posted in the chat before answering, and make sure responses goes in the meeting group chat, not to host or just anybody in particular, not private messages. So you get one guess. So choose one carefully. And the trivia 2 is, which term describes the digital burnout caused by always being online? There are 4 options: V, screen fog; tech fatigue; C, Zoom gloom; X, digital overstimulation. So keep dropping those answers in the chat. If you're also continuing the survey, so keep doing that. I do have some good news. So the winner for the trivia 2 is Shazad Atikur. So congratulations. The correct answer was tech fatigue. So congratulations, you're getting a gift card for that. And we're going to shift back into reflection. I'm going to pass it over back to Coach Crump and Dr. Remti, who will guide us through the next poll and discussion.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tex. So yeah, we're gonna take another poll, y'all. So go ahead and click on the link that will be um placed into the chat. And we want to know what really drives your decision in that moment when drugs show up at a party. Is it my circle? Is it curiosity? Is it knowing the risks? Is it based off of the vibe? Or is it all about my goals? So go ahead and chime in and let us know what you guys are thinking, what y'all are feeling. I think this is a great question, and I'm looking at some of the responses. It's overwhelmingly my goals. We got a couple of people that say knowing the risk and being curious, as well as my circle. Interesting that no one says the vibe, how wild or chill the setting feels, or out of control, even. I think that is a part of it, because you might feel super comfortable and the vibe is cool and the people you're around or is like a safe space and you trust it, and then you end up feeling comfortable. So I think these are all realistic situations. But Dr. Renti, would you care to chime in, and just from your clinical perspective and expertise? I see a lot of folks are saying my goals. I'm not about to mess up what I'm building, which is great. But talk to us about what might happen from where we're in this setting right now versus when we're in the real life and the drugs actually show up.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think this is kind of similar to the first poll we did, where there's maybe some people who are not really saying what may be going on, and that's okay. I think first off, I want to validate again that this is human response to be curious. It's human response to feel that pressure, and especially, as you said, when you're in the setting, when you're in the party, it becomes increasingly harder to say no because the brain wants to feel stimulated. The brain wants to feel like it fits in. The brain does not want to think about long term consequences, does not want to think 10 years ahead. It just wants to be in the moment, and that's okay. And it's okay to have these experiences. It's okay to have these feelings, especially when you're in that setting. You're going to have those feelings because you're around people who are probably taking the drugs. It's okay to have those feelings, but at the same time understand that these are just feelings. Whether you act on them is completely up to you, and how you act on them can determine your future.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the repercussions can be life changing. It can be devastating. So I see that majority of people, say that it's about their goals and they're not about to mess up what they got going on, and I respect that. And I'm curious to know if there's anyone who voted that way that can talk to us briefly about why you voted that way, and talk to us about that. So I'm curious to know: is there someone out there that voted in the majority? And I see a hand, Amina Parker. Go right ahead.
For me, when it comes to party drugs, I've never done drugs in my life. Um, Religious background is where I come from. So as far as like growing up, it was instilled in me not to do them. But as far as like, if I know some people who do them, I just kind of ask them to respect my boundaries when it comes to it. But I don't judge people who do it. You know, I have to respect if you do it, but just be safe and just remember the eternal consequences that happens later in life. So I just look at it in the perspective of more so of understanding and teaching rather than making somebody feel bad, because everybody gonna be curious. We all been curious about one thing, but it's about our intentions to act on it or just not act on it.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That's great insight and great wisdom. Dr. Renti, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I'm actually from the same religious background, I think. So, religious background, spirituality, family values, I think all of those play a role in how we respond in these situations or how we don't respond in these situations. But I think at the end of the day, whatever decisions you're making, ask yourself, is this a decision that I am making, or is this a decision that my brain is making because it wants to do this, this, and this? Is this a decision that's going to benefit me? I think it's always helpful to be introspective and just ask yourself, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Maybe I'm feeling I want to do this right now. Why do I feel that way? I feel that way because there's peer pressure, because I feel curious, because there's this, and that. Okay. And if I do go ahead with this, does this benefit me? Yes, maybe it benefits you because you connect with your peers. But does this benefit you individually? You as a person, your body, your brain. So think about those long-term decisions, think about consequences, and even if you end up doing them, even if you end up doing any marijuana, any heroin, again, that's a very human and natural response. But when you wake up the next day, maybe reevaluate the choices and see if that was the best thing for you. And if you don't want to do that again, think about how you can prepare yourself for the next party or the next gathering you go to, and then just make decisions that support you and not the situation.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dr. Rimsey. And I'll just end with this, like, know your circle too. Like the people that you're around, they're gonna, if they are involved in different types of drugs, there might be a party where you're at, or it's something that you definitely have no reason or should have any reason of trying it, something like hard, like heroin or crack or meth or something like that. But if you don't know, your circle of people and friends that you're around should be like, hey, yeah, don't mess with none of that. You know what I mean? So those are some of the things that also just to keep in mind too. But I know we're close on time, so I'm gonna kick it over to Andre to go to our next video presentation.
Thank you so much for that, Coach Crump. As you mentioned, we're going to jump into our next topic media, teen substance use and abuse.
It may seem common for young people to experiment with different substances, like vaping, weed, tobacco, Molly, and alcohol. Some may even consider hard drugs such as cocaine, meth, or opioids like heroin. Regardless of the substance, if it's not prescribed by a doctor and taken as prescribed, experimenting with substances can have negative effects. Meet Jeremiah. Jeremiah hangs out with his friends on the weekends. They drink alcohol and occasionally smoke marijuana to relax and get away from the stresses of life and school. One time at a party, Jeremiah smoked something a girl handed to him, not knowing what it was. Later, he found out that it was K2, a synthetic type of weed. His friends told him that he was hilarious and started acting crazy, and that they couldn't wait to party with him again. Jeremiah was concerned because he has no memory of what happened. He wants to be with his friends and have a good time, but he hated not remembering and doesn't want to take another substance like that again. He also feels new pressure to be the life of the party and act a certain way. What happened to Jeremiah is all too common. You start out taking one substance and end up taking something else. A danger in using any substance that isn't prescribed to you is not knowing exactly what it is you're taking and how it will impact you. Unfortunately, young people are being exposed to substances that can have dangerous physical and mental health consequences. As a good rule of thumb, if a drug isn't prescribed to you, you shouldn't take it. Pretty quickly, what feels like casual or experimental substance use can turn into a substance use problem, which has long-lasting and negative consequences. Before you decide to use a substance, know the risks and potential consequences, or reach out to a counselor to talk about it.
Every year, harmful use of alcohol is responsible for 3 million deaths and 5% of the global health burden, from road traffic injuries to violence, abuse and neglect, to diseases like liver cirrhosis, heart disease, cancers and tuberculosis, to mental health issues like alcohol dependence, depression and suicides. But what can we do about it? Well, the WHO's global strategy, endorsed by member states, aims to reduce the harmful use of alcohol. Unfortunately, implementation of the strategy is uneven. Meet Nina. In her country, there are very few government regulations on drinking. Nina is out with a friend. The alcohol is cheaper than bottled water, and the bar stays open till 4 a.m, so people are encouraged to stay out late and drink more. Nina's friend falls and hurts herself. Now meet Amya. Her government has introduced pricing measures on alcohol, and there's a mandatory closing time for bars, which means Amya and her friend leave for home at midnight. Amya decides to take a taxi, because the police in her country are very active in enforcing drink driving countermeasures. But in Nina's country, the police don't enforce drink driving laws at all, so she decides to drive her friend home. She is way over the limit and crashes her car. Nina and her friend are taken to hospital, using up the time and resources of busy nurses and doctors. Nina's injuries aren't serious, and once they're patched up, she is released immediately. But when she gets home, she is told that her friend died in the car crash. In Amya's country, if people display signs of problems with drinking alcohol, they are offered help early. Amya's country also has restrictions on alcohol advertising, unlike Nina's, where young people can be persuaded to drink to excess by cleverly targeted commercials. If governments implement the WHO's Safer initiative, they can change people's relationship with alcohol, making our world less like Nina's and more like Amya's. Be safer. Strengthening restrictions on alcohol availability. Advancing and enforcing drink driving countermeasures. Facilitating access to screening, brief interventions and treatment. Enforcing restrictions on alcohol advertising. Raising prices on alcohol through taxes and pricing policies. Safer is a WHO-led initiative that follows the global strategy to make our world safer from alcohol-related harm.
This is the new young face of fentanyl addiction, before and after. 22-year-old Katie Mather, forehead and chin clawed open by her own fingernails because the use of fentanyl makes her skin crawl. I spot her on the Strip, Surrey's infamous drug hangout, and ask if she'll talk to me. She puts cover-up on her raw skin.
So I'm literally just doing my mascara and I'm good to go.
Katie settles in to tell her story.
There we go. Perfect.
How she ended up living on the street 3 months ago, addicted to fentanyl.
Well, I've been using, it's actually funny. Well, not funny, it's terrible. I have a really addictive personality. I've always been like addicted to something, whether it was shopping or Facebook or whatever. And I did an oxy. I got addicted right away. And then I finally found a regular dealer and I started picking up all the time. I remember the day the fentanyl came out and my dealer said, you know, I've got these new pills. They're fake oxys. He didn't tell me they were fentanyl because nobody knew what fentanyl was yet. He just said they're 100 times stronger and they're only $5 more. And I was just like, okay, because I was getting a pretty high tolerance at this point.
Oxys, OxyContin, led to fake 80s, fentanyl posing as OxyContin. Immediately, Katie wanted nothing else.
I could buy one of these fake 80s, put them into 4 lines, and 2 lines would last me a full day. That's how strong it was. And if I did a full pill, I would OD.
Katie says she's overdosed 11 times, most recently a few days ago. Brought back by paramedics or friends on the strip who have naloxone, the powerful opioid antidote.
Every time I do dope, I know I'm taking a risk. I know that I might die, but like, it doesn't matter how many times I've OD'd, I still use the next day because the withdrawals are so bad.
Katie has been in the news before. She and her sister attacked by a Rottweiler cross back in December. Katie was badly hurt and spent time in hospital. She says that cemented her addiction to fentanyl. As she talks, blood starts to seep through her makeup.
Katie, you're 22. Why would you risk this?
Well, at first it was just fun, right? It was just for fun. It was just a party drug that, you know, like, and there's been some things that I've gone through and it helped with a lot of pain. And especially after, you know, that dog attack, I just couldn't stop, you know?
I asked Katie if she worries about herself and her future.
Sometimes, I mean, I don't know. I just like to take things one day at a time, right? I'll kind of just go with it and hopefully, you know, hope for the best.
For now, the best Katie can hope for is to wake up from her next fix of fentanyl.
I don't know about you guys. That video breaks my heart because she's so young and there are resources available to help people like Katie who just one bad decisions away from being on the street and using. Um, just a reminder to all of you at home, if you are struggling with substance use or you just in general have concern, we're here for you. Reach out to us privately, email, to the chat. You don't have to blast it to the group. Just talk to someone, your friend, someone who trusted, an adult in your life, so that we can help you get through this process. And hopefully you won't be like Katie. And now we want to continue this session with a question for you. Have you ever witnessed a moment at a party where you just think to yourself, like, this isn't fun anymore? And what happened? Did it involve drugs? We want to hear from you. And I also want to talk to our clinician, Christian. What was your gut reaction seeing that video with Katie? Can you debrief for a bit with us?
Yeah, I think the number one thing see in that video is her underlying pain, her underlying emotional pain that she was, dealing with. So there's always a root cause when there's an addiction. So I know we're focusing on the fentanyl, but the main focus, in terms of treatment or getting better or things like that is why she was taking it. And she said, it was very helpful for me to get through the pain that she was dealing with at a young age of 22. So that tells you that, there's something there. There's a driver behind behind the fentanyl, and then everything else is just a symptom. So I think if everything was to come out, one thing to remember is that with an addiction, it's really important to really try and focus on why it's being done. Why are you taking that risk of, like she said, I'm putting my life on the line every day. Why? She's putting her life on the line every day because, first of all, it was helping with her pain, and now the pain and the drug has become an addiction. Now she's a biological reaction. Now she needs the drug to respond. Now she's on autopilot. So that's one thing I just wanted to bring up is that once the addiction occurs, your body's just addicted, and it's just it's on autopilot. It needs that drug to survive. And then just real quick, if she stops taking that drug, she's going to experience severe withdrawals, and that's like living that's like living in hell, like being alive, pretty much. Like withdrawals is the worst symptom you can experience ever, outside of being dead. So I just wanted to share that. To look at the pain behind it, and the treatment that might be needed for that, and everything else comes after that.
Thank you so much, Christian. I do want to ask, apparently we have a hero among us. Can you share a little bit about that experience with us? I would love to hear from you. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
I wrote the one where like when the party's getting like out of hand and people are starting to do like dangerous activities. Usually in my experience that happens like towards the later part of the night when like it's like peak. When I don't know how to describe it, but like whenever it's like peak people and it's like super crowded and people are just doing like things to top the next thing and it becomes like very dangerous, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I asked the question I was asking. When it's just alcohol, it was still fun, right? Because everybody was doing it. It seemed rather harmless. And then people start doing more and more and more. And eventually, before you know it, they start doing stuff that is not alcohol, doing drugs, stunts, where they don't think about the consequences. Because at that point, they kind of move on and they don't think about what would happen after that because they think their inhibitions has been prohibited by the drugs and alcohol use. I do want to pass it on to Tex.
Now let's keep that energy going and move into our final trivia question for tonight. Just a reminder, remember, send it to everybody, not just private, no DMs. You only get one guess only. And the question for trivia number 3 is going to be, what is neurodivergent masking, often discussed among youth communities online? 4 options. M, using filters to hide identity. N, pretending to have a diagnosis. F, hiding one's natural behavior to appear neurotypical. And V, avoiding emotional expression. Well, we'll see who gets this correct and who our trivia winner is.
Good news. Our winner for trivia number 3 was Eric Gonzalez. The correct answer was F, hiding one's natural behavior to appear neurotypical. So good job with that.
So I'll pass it on before we close out. I'll pass it on to Dr. Rimty to lead us on a grounding exercise. Dr. Rimty, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Today's episode, we talked about substance. We saw the video. It can be a lot. So we're going to take a brief moment to reset. Previously, we did some breathing exercises and they're very helpful for many people. But sometimes when you're anxious, focusing on breathing can be not really that helpful for some people. So today we're going to do a grounding exercise that brings your attention outward. So back into the present moment. This is called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. So look around where you are, your room, wherever you are. Name 5 things you can see in your head. Just observe. It can be a water bottle. It can be your phone. It can be a camera. Just 5 things and note down in your hand, these are the 5 things I can see. And then in your head, name 4 things you can physically feel. Maybe it's your feet on the floor, or your hands, or the chair, anything you can feel with your body, with your hands, with your feet. Then 3 things you can hear. Maybe it's my voice, maybe it's the AC going on, maybe there's a sound from your phone, anything at all. Then 2 things you can smell. Or if you can't smell anything, just notice the air around you. Try to smell the air. And finally, 1 thing you can focus on right now, something simple. It could be my voice, it could be your screen, it could be your wall, something that keeps you grounded in this moment. And just the goal isn't to feel completely calm, but gently bring your mind and body back to the present. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Empty, that amazing grounding exercise. Some quick reminders before we close. The sign-in sheet is now in the chat, so if you guys can go ahead, sign on to that right after we finish up here. It will close at 8:30 p.m. sharp. I would like to thank all of you guys for making time and being with us here tonight. I would like to thank our peer leaders, our clinicians, our mentors, and our producers. Our next Pod at 7 session will be Exploring the Power of Mindfulness on Wednesday, May 6, 2026 at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So hopefully I will see you guys there and have an amazing day.